So as Coach Prime and the Colorado Buffaloes get yet another win, so too do the good times roll in Boulder, Colorado. And today, we need to turn our attention to a different win. A win that Colorado got on the recruiting trail today for edge Amontrae Bradford out the state of Georgia. We need to highlight who Amontrae Bradford is, why this is a big deal for Colorado Buffaloes and Colorado fans, and highlight the recruiter that got him there. On top of that, we need to turn our attention to Arizona State AD Ray Anderson and the comments he made on Coach Prime, because he dropped some truth on college football, something we've got to dissect. But before we can, as always, y'all know the drill. I have got to hear from you. Hop down to the comments, give me a Y for yes or an N for no. Are you excited that Amontrae Bradford joins the Colorado Buffaloes? And then let me know, how do you believe Coach Prime fills up this recruiting class, a conversation we're about to have. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe, hit that bell notification. I do constant college football content. You don't want to miss any of it. And if you enjoyed the content, be sure to like and comment down below. But having said all of that, let's jump right into this. First and foremost, who is Amontrae Bradford? Well, Amontrae Bradford is a very talented individual out the state of Georgia who stands 6'5", 230 pounds per on-3. And if we look at the on-3 rankings in and of themselves, this is a top 300 football player in the nation. So he is a very gifted prospect. Now, if we look at the recruiting consensus rankings, he comes in as a 3-star prospect, but he's a name I want you to keep your eye on because he could be due for a recruiting rankings climb due to his senior season. If you turn on the tape, he is an incredibly gifted prospect with a very high motor, and his athleticism screams that this is a player that you need to be excited about. But we need to talk about Nick Williams, the defensive line coach for the Colorado Buffaloes, someone who, whenever it was announced that he was hired at Colorado, I was really excited about that move for Coach Prime and the Colorado Buffaloes. The reason was simple. You get a guy in Nick Williams who's from the state of Georgia, who worked with the Georgia Bulldogs, who's worked with other SEC teams, has recruited really well, and if you listen to the players that have been around him, they think really highly of Nick Williams. So I thought it was a phenomenal hire that Coach Prime got, and now we're seeing the returns pay off, where Colorado just got a guy who, per some recruiting services, is a top 300 prospect in the nation, coming in as high as number 291. Once again, that's from On3. Nick Williams gets a big win here. He gets to go into the state of Georgia, and he gets to give Colorado a presence in the state of Georgia. Now, Coach Prime doesn't need any help garnering national attention. He is moving the needle, something we're going to dive into. But it doesn't hurt whenever you have a guy such as a Nick Williams be able to walk into a state like Georgia and say, hey, I have familiarity not only with you, with this state, the way it runs, and I was you. I grew up here, and so I can relate. I think that that's a very powerful thing for Colorado, and Georgia is always a state loaded with future college football players. So Amontrae Bradford joins this Colorado recruiting class, a recruiting class that now has 9 commits and ranks number 68 in the nation. And that might surprise some people, considering how much positive attention has gone Coach Prime and the Colorado Buffaloes' direction, that they are ranked 68th in the nation in recruiting. I think there's a lot of people out there that would expect them to be higher. And this is where I am super interested to see how Coach Prime and the staff plays this out. Are they going to rely more on the transfer portal, or are they going to really hit recruiting hard? Personally, I think there's going to be a balance. I think they're going to be very selective in recruiting, and they're going to really open up the floodgates with the transfer portal, and that's where they're going to do a lot of their work. Interesting to note that some new transfer portal rules have come down, and the windows have shortened. The December window, instead of being 60 days, is now 45 days. That's something we're going to have to keep our eye on, but I don't think that's going to affect the way Coach Prime is able to navigate the transfer portal and the successes he will inevitably find in there. But I'm really interested in hearing from all of you on how you expect Colorado to fill up this recruiting class, because I think they're going to be in for some flips. I think they've turned heads from some of the nation's top prospects. We've seen some of these visitor lists where there's a lot of very talented players interested in seeing how Coach Prime has these Buffaloes humming, and they are all enjoying their visits per the reports. But it's going to be very interesting to see what moves they're able to make in recruiting relative to what moves they make in the transfer portal, and I need to hear from you. Which do you think they rely more on, recruiting or the transfer portal? I'd probably have to go transfer portal as we sit right now. But now we need to turn our attention elsewhere, because Arizona State AD Ray Anderson dropped some serious truth on all of college football in regards to Coach Prime, talking about how there are some people out there that don't like the antics and he doesn't understand why. He talked about how he'd heard rumblings from other coaches, athletic directors, people involved in administrations with other universities, that they didn't like how many celebrities would show up on Colorado's sideline, and that they might feel like it gives them a competitive advantage when it comes to recruiting, that they have famous rappers, famous movie actors on the sidelines for the Colorado Buffaloes. And personally, Ray Anderson had the best answer for this. He said, and I quote, "I've heard from folks all over entertainment and rappers and Rock Johnson and others on the sidelines were starting to agitate people. Hey, if those are his friends and supporters of his programs, he's got a right to have them down there. If people are offended, they think it's a recruiting advantage because you have a well-known rapper who is a good friend of Coach Prime who wants to come down and visit the sidelines, that's just the way of the world. Too bad. Go and get your stars in entertainment." He continues, saying people do it all the time. They have high-profile alums who are Pro Bowl players who are down on their sidelines. They've been doing it for years. Crying about Coach Prime and his rapper friends is disingenuous, in my opinion, and I couldn't agree more. This has been a tool that colleges have been able to exercise for years now, and that's why it is not in the least bit problematic that Coach Prime is doing it as well. Good for him. Good for him. As the Arizona State administration stated, it is a breath of fresh air. And it's interesting to see this dynamic between Arizona State's AD and Coach Prime, recognizing how much of a positive impact Coach Prime has had on the Colorado Buffaloes. Ray Anderson even talked about the fact that in his time of being Arizona State's athletic director, that Colorado had never sold out that game when Colorado had came to their stadium, yet here they sat in a sold-out arena, and he said that is due to Coach Prime and the Colorado Buffaloes and what they've been able to do. It harkens back to something we talked about on this very channel months ago. In fact, closer to a year now, that Coach Prime moves the needle. And you can pretend not to understand this fact, you can disagree with it, but that doesn't diminish its truth. Coach Prime absolutely moves the needle, and he's continuing to do so week in, week out. And quite frankly, I'm excited to see what happens next. I am really excited to see what Colorado does in terms of what they do in recruiting and in the transfer portal and how they continue to evolve on the football field. Deion Sanders is putting on a show, and these young players are showing all these recruits, hey, there's a reason you should believe in the Colorado Buffaloes because we're coming. And I think in some areas, they've arrived. Hop down to the comments. Let me know what you're thinking about all this. I thought this was super interesting. One, the win that Colorado got on the trail. I think the wins they're getting on the fields are paving the way for wins on the trail. And then two, Ray Anderson's comments, because I think he was right on the money with some of the disingenuous rhetoric we've heard surrounding Coach Prime and the Colorado Buffaloes. I think it's awesome to hear someone in his position call out some of those disingenuous comments, and that's part of the reason we're talking about it right now, because it is just that, disingenuous, and I can't wait to hear from all of you. Hop down to the comments, let me know what you're thinking. That's it. See ya.